Hello everybody and welcome back to the MMO project, where ultimately, last time I definitely spent too long on it. Because both of these were super stupid. Like, I just couldn't see them. So, let's go over them quickly. I'll just go ahead and take the ARPG camera one off of the list for right now. So the problem here is that it checks for the locked state only if it's not locked. So we can just put it, say, right there. Well, there's that bug fixed. Now the camera works fine. See, this is what happens. You spend a really long time on something in a programming project and it's just not working, and you just can't see why. And then you take a break, and you come back, and it's just boom. Immediate. Similarly, in the server code with the overcompensation, so the problem here is in, let's see here, where was that? It was in the server code, and it was, oh, hang on, this is the server sandbox that I have open. I opened the wrong project. Oh boy. Give me 1 second here. Actually, yeah, let's just fire up Visual Studio again. And we are going to open up the Channel MMO server, not the server sandbox. There we go. This will help. This already had the fix in, and that was why I was confused. So the problem here is we put it into the past, and then we project it forward ticks times. And then we iterate through ticks and tick it forward that number of ticks. I don't even. So there's that fixed. This is what happens when you program for too long. Just make stupid mistakes. So, I will attempt to prevent that in the future. Like, literally, 2 minutes. Even explaining what was going wrong, it took 2 minutes to fix it. Isn't that just typical? So let's fire up the server. The game is now in the state where I expected it to be at the end of last episode. So let's fire up the client, and we'll just give this a quick test. ASDF, ASDF, let's await the encryption handshake. And at some point, we definitely need to replace this. I don't think that's a job for this episode, but maybe the to-dos episode on Sunday. So let's log in. You can see we're currently rocking the 500 ping. We'll enter that world, and there's a tiny jump there when the server catches up. So I imagine that there's two things going on with that tiny jump. You see that just ever so slight hitch there? Where it just makes a tiny, oh, that was a bit more of a correction, but where it just makes a very small correction about half a second after the movement command is sent in. I suspect there's two factors to that. First off, I think it's because our ping calculation on the client side is really weird and isn't working exactly the way I'd like it to, because we're not using datetime.now. I suspect that's what's going on there. You can see there, it made a pretty big jump there. But there's the ping calculation, and then there's also just general floating point errors, but once it snaps that first time, it's okay. And realistically, as far as 500 ping goes, that's not so bad to have that little bit of a correction there every little while. Or, well, every ping duration after the initial receipt. Let's just bump that down to a ping of 0. And we can see, also, let's just test out Snap 2 with the spacebar, but we're unlocked because I let it up immediately. So we can do things like this. Excellent. Okay, so the camera is obviously working absolutely fine at this point. Also, you'll notice because we did it with normalized directions, that going diagonally moves at exactly the same speed as going any other direction, which is nice. But at 0 ping, you'll notice that the jump happens almost instantly, which is what we'd expect. The jump happens once the server updates it a little bit, right? So that's fine. If we were to turn interpolation off in the representation manager, then we will notice that there is no such jump. And we will also notice if we take our ping back up to 500, there is a jump there, but that's because of how long it takes that packet to go round trip, right? And it also is going exactly the distance it should be. So overall, our time travel seems to be working, which is fantastic. I really think that our issue right now with the jump is on the client side rather than the server side, and that it is having to do with the amount of latency compensation that it is doing. I really think that that's what's going on there. And let's bump that back down to 0 ping. Yeah. Okay. So at this time, we're now entering live programming. I didn't want to do too much preemptive work. I just want to kind of take a look at what we've got going on today with relatively fresh eyes. So let's just go ahead and bump into our to-dos here after we turn off the server. And overcompensation of latency on server side is now done, so we can get rid of that. We can put in a known issue here that would be when we receive an updated desired position from the server, it jumps the character a bit. That's spelled with a CH. Character a bit. Possibly to do with ping compensation. Client side. That's my theory, is that it has to do with our ping calculation on the client side. But that may not be a thing, but that's kind of a sub-problem of this. So we'll go ahead and put it there. Wonderful. We could look at some of our chat things. I'm not too concerned about that right now. Actually, coming soon, I want to put in an options menu quite soon. And honestly, do I kind of feel like implementing that right now? I kind of do. Okay, so let's go into our game view here. And we're going to do a UI image. This is going to be the options menu. Excellent. We'll go into our UI here, and we will create a C# script. I'm not going to put this in any of these folders because it will kind of be accessible from any of these locations to some degree. And we'll call this the options menu. Excellent. We're going to create 2 more scripts here. This is going to be the option category. And then we're also going to create in option. Excellent. Okay, so in the options menu here, we're going to need a public list option category. Categories. Excellent. And that list, we may want to populate that based on the option categories that are on the menu, or we may want these to not be a mono behavior. Let's actually think about how we're going to construct this. So first off, let's put the options menu script on here. That gives us our list of categories. So our categories here, we're going to go ahead and flag these as system.serializable. And we may need to remove the mono behavior, we may not. Let's do a little bit of experimenting there. And then this would be something like public I just had a thought that we might want to do this a little bit differently. Okay, I know how I'm going to structure this. Option category is going to be a mono behavior. Excellent. And we're going to use the hierarchy here. So we're going to create an empty here, and we're going to call this option category. And we'll make, say, 2 of them. 2 extra of them. Category. There we go. These will have the option category script on them. And then inside of this, there would be option. And that would have the option script. Wonderful. Okay, so let's start working on our UI here. First things first, I want to add an outline here. And I want to make this be red. We'll make it be 2 pixels. But then we'll add another outline. And this one will be white. And we'll make that another 2 pixels. Excellent. And then we'll make the actual menu itself be kind of a darkish gray. Kind of like that. And the reason that I did the red and the white outline is to just kind of match what we've got going on color scheme wise here. And then let's go ahead and make this, say, 1280, no, not position, width 1280 by, say, 720. So that it's a little smaller than our screen, but it's still by far the dominant element. And then we'll go ahead and place a... Do we want to make this modal? Yeah, I think we do. So we'll actually create an empty here. And we'll call this the options modal. Excellent. We'll place the options menu inside of that, and then we'll create an image here. And this image is going to be black, but at 128, so half transparency. Yes. And then this is going to be stretched across the entirety of the screen. Wonderful. Now I want to make sure that this window is centered inside of it. And what is with this scale? Let's reset that scale and reset this scale as well. These should all still be at 1, and indeed they are. Fantastic. Okay, so the options menu here is going to have a couple of things. It'll be populated from this options category here, but we're also going to create an empty over here, and we'll call this the options UI. Excellent. And then inside of that, we are going to go ahead and create, we'll make this also be 1280 by 720, just so that we can utilize some alignment bits. But we'll also go ahead and create ourselves a UI scroll rect, which is scroll view here. And we are not going to need a horizontal scroll view, so we can turn off our horizontal, although we actually kind of can't. But we can make our vertical be at a height of... Can't change our H delta. Oh, because we need to change our horizontal to auto hide. And then our vertical is also going to be set to auto hide. So our vertical here needs to be set to a bottom of 0. Excellent. Now, inside of this, we're going to have our list of categories. And we're going to position this so that it's in about 5 pixels, but we want to set this to be 0 and 0.5 is fine. We'll set this on the left side. We'll set it in about 5 pixels, and then we'll have it be actually stretched along this axis. So right over here. From the top, we'll have it be 5 pixels, and from the bottom 5 pixels with a width of about 300 pixels. Something like that. Now our viewport here, what is actually coloring the viewport? It is this. Okay. Let's just go ahead and make that a little bit on the darker side. About 30. There we go. That should do. Now for the content, we'll add a content size fitter. And we'll set it to preferred size and preferred size. Actually, for horizontal, we'll set it to unconstrained. Excellent. And then we will also add a vertical layout group. And that will be padded in 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Excellent. Now, let's go ahead and create ourselves a folder here. Options menu before this gets too much messier. And we'll just move those into that folder. Yeah, that's fine, Visual Studio. You don't have to re-update that. And then we're going to create ourselves a UI text Mesh Pro. That's just a regular text. We're going to make ourselves a UI text Mesh Pro. Oh, it was because I was slightly zoomed in. That makes more sense. And we don't need this to be size 36. 18 is probably plenty. And we will set this to middle center. Excellent. And let's check in on our current content size. So our current content size has a height of 60. That's fine. We want to make sure that this controls child height, though. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. And then the width should also probably be controlled here. No, definitely not. Okay. We'll just bump this up to, say, 275. Okay. We're going to need to add in an event trigger. We'll add a new event type, and we'll do a pointer enter, a pointer exit, and a pointer click. Fantastic. So that will allow us to click on these objects here. And these objects are going to be essentially tabs. We're going to populate this from our categories. So we will call this the category tab. And we will make that into a prefab. Wonderful. Now, in the options category, we're going to need a public string category name. Excellent. And then we are, of course, going to be needing, in the UI folder, options menu. In the option, we don't need all of these things, but we can have a public string option. And then we can also make ourselves a public enum option types. And this is going to be essentially a checkbox, a slider. What other option types are we going to need? And actually, this would be a labeled slider. We can add in more a little bit later on. And we'll just call this public string name instead. Or option name. Name, like that. And also public option types, option type. Okay. So this will automatically fill in the information that we need. So we will also need to go into our options menu. And I don't think we need this list. Maybe we do. I don't know. I'll have to think about how I want to handle that. But we will need a public void start. Or rather, do we want to rebuild this on enable? I don't think that's necessary, realistically. This is going to be pretty much the same every time we look at it. But what I really want to do is be able to easily add new options. So that's why we're structuring it in this way. So the options menu is currently located here. And I think we would remove that and put this into the options modal. And we'll call this options menu. We'll just not call it anything. We'll just put it in there. And then our option category, we're going to also make into a prefab. And our option, we're also going to make into a prefab. And we're going to get rid of everything inside of here and just make sure that these are all prefabs. So option category 1, option category 2. Option category. And then we'll also just do something like that. Okay, and then we would put an option into here. Just like that. Excellent. So those options will be populated in here. And then we'll also have an accept, apply, and cancel button. So let's actually copy our settings button here. And we will place that inside of our options UI. We'll place that down at the bottom below the scroll view, which we'll rename to options categories tabs. That's 3 plurals in a row. I'm sure that makes sense. And then we will have this be the cancel button. We'll duplicate it twice more. And then this will be the apply button. And then this will be the accept button. Excellent. All of these we will be placing aligned to the bottom center. We're going to do 0.5 and 0. And then we're just going to place them at position 0 for right now. We'll add in another, say, 10 pixels here. And then we'll move one over to about -150. We'll move one over to about 150. And then one over to perhaps 450. That's too close together, for sure. But that's very close to how I want it. So we'll just move in, we'll move over the apply button about 10 pixels. And then the accept button about 20. Now the whole thing, I feel like needs to come this way. About 5 pixels. So we'll do this 155. We'll do this at, well, that was -155. This one will be at 155, and then this would be at 465. Yeah, that's pretty close to centered. Wonderful. Now, I don't feel like these need a width of 300. Let's instead give them a width of 250. Yeah, that feels better. Excellent. And we'll also change our text here. This will be cancel. And all the cancel button needs to do is turn the options modal off. So we'll go to options modal, game object, set active, false. So there's the cancel button fully implemented. This will then be apply, which will change all of the settings that have been changed, but not close the window. And then this one is accept, which will do the same thing, but close the window. Excellent. Okay, so obviously this text here is going to need to be potentially duplicated many times. I hope we don't have this many categories to our options. Realistically, I doubt we'll ever need to use this scroll view, but that'll be okay for now. So let's actually duplicate our scroll view here. And we are going to place this up above the buttons, which we can now minimize. And we are going to go ahead and call this the options view with a W. That tends to help. Excellent. And we're going to move this over to about right here, I think. So we'll call this 360. And then from the bottom, we'll move this up about 50 pixels. Yep, that's about right. And then we'll set our width to be equivalent to about 870. Maybe 875? 875 will probably be slightly too long. Yeah, that is slightly too long. So we'll try 870. That's about right. Okay. And then it's inside of here that we're going to construct our actual options. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, that's quite a question. I don't necessarily have an answer for it currently, although I can tell you we're not going to need a category tab in our content. That is absolutely for sure. So what are our categories going to be? Well, for right now, we can actually get rid of our category tab that is here. Excellent. And then our category here, we can go ahead and rename to, say, General. And then we can have a category here that is Controls. And then a category here that is... And actually, I'm going to rename these as well. General category. And then this will be this option category will be Controls category. This options category will instead be, say, Camera category. Would control things like the zoom speed and the scroll speed and things like that. And then the camera category here would have something, or rather, this would not be a camera category, but this would be, say, a video category. Actually, let's rename that to graphics category. And then we'll have, say, an audio category. And for now, we'll leave it at just those 5 categories. Obviously, most of those are going to be placeholder, but we'll be able to expand this as necessary. Okay, so let's hop into our options menu here. We've got a public void start. We're going to need a public void on press apply button. And then we'll also need a public void on press accept button, which we can implement that right now. That's just going to be on press apply button with a GameObject.setActive false. That's all that's going to be. We can't really implement the on press apply button quite yet because we don't know exactly how that's going to work. But let's go ahead and do a public GameObject options object. We're also going to need some references to some instantiation. We're going to need a method for public void on change tab. And we'll need to know which tab. So we'll do perhaps an int tab. Okay. We're going to need a public void build tab. And we'll pass in, say, options category. I guess it was option category instead of options. Yes. Okay. So we'll do something along the lines of that. So when we do our start, we need to populate in our tabs and then call onChangeTab. And I think our easiest way to do this is going to be a public list of option categories. Thank you, Visual Studio. Equals new list, option category. And then we're going to need to say option categories. Actually, we don't need to initialize this here. We could say option categories equals something along the lines of get components in children of type option category. We're only going to call this once, and then perhaps .toList. Yeah, that'll need using system.link, but that's fine. So we can then put that in a list just like that. We don't seem to need using system.collections right now. So we'll take that off. And then we will do onChange tab, and we'll just pass this in tab 0. This will be 0 indexed. And when we call onChange tab, all we need to do here is then call build tab. Or actually, we'll need to call clear tab first. And then build tab is going to be something along the lines of passing in option categories tab, like that. We're going to need a clear tab, of course. So for this, I think... Do we want to instantiate a new tab every time? Or do we want to just disable the tab? I think we're better off disabling it. So public rect transform current tab equals, or actually we'll not actually set that. We may need a list of tabs. Public list rect transform tabs equals new list rect transform. We may need that. So instead of clear tab, all we would do is we would say if current tab dot set active, or rather .gameObject dot set active false. The only reason we're doing a rect transform here rather than a game object is just to keep it a little more clear what we've got going on. I'm not sure if this is clear at all, but so now we need to check to see, instead of using rect transform, we're actually going to need a new C# script, and we're going to call this an options tab. Okay. And the options tab is going to need to have some information inside of it. We are going to need to change this from a rect transform to an options tab then. Okay. So this will be options tab. And then, of course, public options tab, current tab. So first we need to check to see. So the options tab, we're going to need to store our option category. Public options, option category, option category. Excellent. This is going to be a mono behavior, and that's also going to need to be a prefab that we then build on the fly. So instead of calling build tab here, we're probably instead going to put that in option tab now, or rather options tab. I'm not being very consistent with that naming. Some of them are option, some of them are options. It's very awkward. That's something I definitely need to address. So we need to check to see if our list contains this. So for int I equals 0, I is less than tabs.count, I++, this should go quite quickly. If tabs I dot option category is equal to option categories tab, then we should set this tab active. It's already been built. So we'll just say tabs I dot option category, or rather not dot option category, dot game object dot set active true. Tabs, or rather current tab equals tabs I. Excellent. And then we should probably break out of our for loop because we don't need to check the rest of them. And we should probably at this point actually return. We don't need to do anything else in that at that point in theory. And then if we make it out of the for loop, we don't have that tab. We should instantiate it. So we're going to need a couple of categories over here. So first off, let's actually make this a private list. And as far as our tabs go, let's also make that a private list. We'll have our options object. Let's see here. Options menu. This should get called on options object dot get components in children. Okay, let's get this set up a little bit here. So the options modal will need the options object, which will be options menu, and then it will start without having a current tab. But we will immediately call onChangeTab 0. Excellent. We already know our option categories. That is grabbed automatically and will get us these guys. We should change this though. This should be camera. This should be graphics. And this should be audio. Excellent. Audio will be a placeholder for now. But we are, of course, going to need to set up changing to these as necessary. And hello, desktop. Fancy meeting you here. That tends to happen. So we're going to need to... Let's go ahead and just move this up here. And we'll do a region here, private fields. And we will end region. Wonderful. And then we will also do a region public references. We'll also do an end region. And then we're going to do a region up here, prefabs. We're going to need quite a few prefabs here. So the first one that we're going to need is public options tab options prefab. Excellent. And actually, let's go ahead and do some headering here as well. Header prefabs. And then down here, we'll do header references. Just to get that a little bit more cleaned up. So if we go into our options modal here, we've got our prefabs and our references. Wonderful. So this scroll view here, this options view, let's go ahead and rename that to options tab. Excellent. And we'll toss in options tab here. And then that category will get set. So let's go ahead and create ourselves a folder here, and we'll call this prefabs, just to keep this a little bit more clear. And we'll also create a folder here, and we'll call this scripts. And we'll toss these guys into here. Wonderful. Okay, so we've got our options tab here. There we go. We can safely delete that. Let's see here. This position is 360. Well, that position gets saved, so that's fine. We'll safely delete that. And then we need to instantiate, of course. This is our server here. We need to instantiate that up, and I moved this so it closed it, and so it should be in here now. Excellent. So we don't have this tab currently. We should instantiate it. So we will go ahead and do tabs.add, and we are going to add in our prefab here, which was options tab, or options prefab. Options prefab. And where should we put this? Or rather, we need to instantiate this. Instantiate options prefab. And what should this be parented to? This should be parented to... Let's see, this goes to the options UI. So we're going to need that in our references. Hello again, desktop. We are going to need that here. So we'll do a public transform options UI. Wonderful. And then we will put that in right here. No, I did not actually want to make that a prefab. Oh, it's because it didn't compile. I think I was... Yeah, of course. Options UI is where we want to put that. There we go. Now it'll compile. Excellent. I'm not sure why it made this red. It's kind of obnoxious of it. But whatever. Okay, so our options menu here has this. Can we unpack prefab? There we go. That'll do the trick. So our options modal here needs to have its options UI transform here. There we go. So when we try to change our tab, if we don't already have it, we will instantiate it and add it to the list. However, we should probably say something along the lines of options tab equals instantiate this, because we're going to need to do a little bit of work with it. And then we'll just add in tab. Wonderful. This is... Oh, that's the same as this int. So we'll call this new tab. Then we'll add new tab. Wonderful. Okay, so actually in that options tab, we're going to need to call build tab, and so we shall. So in the options menu, we will go ahead and do new tab.build tab. And this would pass in the object category that it's assigned to, right? Yeah. So this would be the option categories tab. And that gets us our category. So that should be on change tab reasonably done. We may want to put in some sort of a fancy indicator to indicate that that is done. We'll see. Yeah, that might be a thing that needs to happen. But for right now, we'll need to start working on our build tab. Of course, for that, we'll need to actually know our options. And in our options menu, I think we'll give options tab a reference to this. Public options menu, so we don't have to have a million prefab anywhere other than right here that we have to remember to set. So that'll be for the best. So we'll set new tab.options menu equal to this. Wonderful. So we are, of course, currently nowhere near done with this, but I think I'm going to take a break here, and I will finish this off camera, and then we will re-implement this in the next episode. So we got a couple of bug fixes done, I guess, but I mostly got tied up with getting the start on the options menu. But that is going to be the next episode, is finishing up that options menu. Until then, however, you can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I'll see you all next time, when we're going to stick a little bit more closely to what I said we're going to do. See you all then.